Rangers fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast. I'm Andrew Chelney. Nick Zararis, where's Nick Zararis? He is on vacation this week. Therefore, I shall be handling the reins of the show. Me, myself, and I today. We have some Mika Zibanejad notes to get into via Dan Rosen of NHL.com before we get into some of the things that I wanted to discuss this week on the show. Real quick, we're live on YouTube and Twitch, Liberty Blue Pod on both platforms. Go ahead and watch my face as I talk to you live. You can also participate in the chat live if you so wish. You can talk to me and I'll be able to answer anything you got going on. But also, real quick, we are a part of the Believe network of podcasts. So if you want another avenue to listen to the show, feel free to check us out there. We very, very much appreciate your, you're listening and your continued support of the show. So here we go. So real quick before we get into what I wanted to get into, Mika Zibanejad apparently, allegedly, according to Dan Rosen, sat down with Mike Sullivan in Sweden, and he said that he wants to continue playing at right wing with JT Miller, centering that line with Panarin, and then you have Trocheck playing the 2C, and I guess me playing the 3C. Allegedly, that's Juuso Parssinen right now, which, again, it's one of those things, and Nick and I have talked about this before, where if Juuso Parssinen was going to be the Rangers' long-term third-line center, why then did you not play him when you acquired him? You trade, and I understand that the Ryan Lindgren trade to Colorado, it wasn't for Parson. I understand that completely, 100%. The trade was to get those second and fourth round picks, and VZ was a throw in, right? Parson was a throw in. DeHaan clearly was a throw in, as Nick and I have talked about multiple times on the show. We didn't really agree with, but that's how the cookie crumbles. That's how the Rangers viewed Calvin DeHaan. Juuso Parssinen was a throw-in in that trade, and he played a little bit here and there, and then there was a large gap where he didn't see ice at all. Like there was a while where he just sat in the rafters and didn't really do anything. So now with this extension to Parssinen, and daily face-off, but the talk now with Zibanejad being the first line right wing is Juuso Parssinen, unless the Rangers, sign me or find someone that could PTO. Maybe, like, I don't even know. Like, maybe Jack Roslovic is the answer. Who knows? But until something like that happens, by all intents and purposes, Juuso Parssinen is written in pencil as the third line center for, even though he didn't really play last, when he was acquired, whatever. And, you can make the argument, okay, well, Laviolette was the coach, Mike Sullivan likes him a lot more. Maybe like, there's definitely nuance there. And maybe Mike Sullivan saw something in person. Maybe, I would have to imagine Mike Sullivan has been, was watching a lot of Rangers tape leading up to his multiple interview process before he got the Rangers job. I would have to imagine he saw something in Parssinen that led him to believe in him and think that Parssinen could work as the 3C. Who knows? I think time will tell. I think, when we drop the puck for game one of the regular season, obviously we'll have, a much better understanding of what not only Mike Sullivan's vision is for Parssinen, but also Chris Drury's vision and what, the organization thinks of Parssinen. Because, at least on paper right now, Parssinen is the 3C. So if he's not by game one of the regular season, it's going to tell us a lot about how the Rangers thought he was going to come out of camp, how, what they think of him now, obviously in October when that happens. And, we'll go from there. But barring a catastrophe, I think in camp, and barring a different move of some kind, Parson will be the 3C. And going back to Zibanejad here, he will be the first line right wing with Miller and Panarin. The idea, hopefully, being that that line will be better than they did last year. I'm not saying that line was catastrophically bad or anything, but whomst on that team played well, out better than expected, outside of like Will Cooley, right? Like there were players that didn't play poorly by any stretch of the imagination, but comparatively to what the standards were for pretty much every individual on that team, you have like Will Cooley playing above expectation, and that's like kind of it. Which in a worst case scenario, that's what's going to happen, right? But 3C continues to be a massive problem until Parsonage can prove to me, he can prove to the organization that he can do this. I'm very skeptical about Parson in that 3C spot. You know, again, I'm not rooting against him. That's one of the biggest things that I want to highlight is I never root against the player. Like even Zibanejad, I've talked about Zibanejad at length, seemingly like every single week, right? Like but I don't root against him. Ideally, all of the criticism that we give him, and a bunch of other people give him, he listens to and takes it and runs with it and has the best year of his career, right? That's the hope. Like me, whether it be me, Nick, or whoever else, we're not actively rooting against him, we're not actively rooting against the individual off the ice, right? Like you know we watch Mika Zibanejad, the hockey player, and realize, oh my god, my man's is definitely one of the players of all time. He's playing. He's got a jersey and he's on the ice. That is, I can say that. Hopefully, with a new coach and another, he played a few years with. A few months with JT Miller and Panarin now as a line. Apparently, he likes that line a lot and wants to keep that together. So he wants to be on that first line right wing. Okay, fine. Hopefully, under a new head coach with a new system and a new maybe headspace, that line will be successful. Maybe we'll go from there. But with Zibanejad being the first line right winger, okay, well, who's gonna be in the third line, right? Who's gonna be like? Let's say Parsonen doesn't take the role. Who is? That's the question now that you have to ask yourself is, okay, well, if the Rangers plan A right now is Yusuf Parson, maybe as soon as I'm done with this podcast, they sign Jack Roslovic to a PTO or Tyler Mott to a PTO. By the way, Tyler Mott as a 3C would not be great. I love Tyler Mott. I think he's a great fourth line center. A third line center would be tough for me to swallow. But, you got questions that you don't really have answers to if your plan A falls apart. If Parson, even if Parson, let's say, has a great camp, even if he outperform, like, let's say, I forget how many preseason games it is this season, but let's say in the 3 or 4 games that he plays, he scores like 7 goals. He's looking really good. He's looking incredible. Even if he has solidified his role in the 3C slot, what if he gets hurt? Okay, if he gets hurt and can't play 3C, then who is going to be that 3C? Is it going to be by committee of, okay, well, Zibanejad's going to have to get moved down to 2C, and then it's going to be Trocheck because there's a hole there? Okay, well, if that happens, then who's going to be on the first line? Is it going to be Will Cooley? Is it going to be somebody else? Nick and I have talked about this where they traded away Chris Kreider, and we agreed with the trade. It was time. Chris Kreider is going to be a great Ranger. I think his number is going to get retired. But you didn't replace that. You didn't replace his value. He's still, even with the not great season he had last year, hopefully he performs better in Anaheim. He was still a top 6 winger. So you traded away one of those and you didn't find someone that would replace that. Okay. So now instead of Kreider, now you have Zibanejad playing the right wing. Okay, well, if Zibanejad now has to play down the middle, then who's taking Zibanejad's spot? That's another question that the Rangers have to answer. I would have to think as a result of that, they're going to have a PTO of some kind, but I don't even know if they could because Pugpedia has their current cap space right now at 700, a couple of like literal dollars under $778,000. So I guess like if they could they'd be really cutting it close. You can bring somebody in for a 1 year like league min $775,000 contract, and that's it. But that's gonna be tough. I mean, it's gonna be real tough for them to figure that out. Maybe Roslovic would be down for it. Maybe the list is short, but I guess if there's no other offers, then you'd rather do that than maybe go to Europe or play in the AHL or something. Like, who knows? But it's gonna be tough to get that figured out. Okay, so moving on from that, one of the biggest things I wanted to get into this week was looking ahead to next season's free agency, where there's a lot of big names at the top. Of course, headlined by Connor McDavid. Of course, of course, of course. The Rangers currently, according to Puckpedia, have a cap projection, a cap space projection at over $29.5 million. I understand that Panarin, is going to be a free agent and is going to be one of the biggest names within that free agency pool, right? He's currently making a little bit over 11.6. He's a free agent after this season. So let's just say the Rangers don't extend him yet. I'm not saying that he won't resign or whatever, but let's just say the Rangers wait until July 1st to see where they're at with Panarin, right? So with that in mind, they would have 29, just a hair over $29.5 million of cap space to play with. Their other UFAs slash RFAs are Johnny Brzezinski, who even like even if you give him a lifetime deal, whatever, 8 years, you know, just for the sake of the conversation, let's just make it 8 years. He's gonna make maximum, like he's making $787,500 right now. Like maximum, he's gonna make like 1 million for like if the Rangers extend him. He's not gonna be worth like they're not gonna give him more than that. I really doubt it, and it would be around that area. Like even if you like really like the guy, it would be shocking if it was more than like a 1.1, 1.2 maybe. And is Johnny Brodzinski worth 1.2? Like I don't know. Like no. Like the answer is no. But with the cap going up as much as it is, am I going to split hairs over 1.1 versus 1.2? I'm not, there's bigger fish to fry here. If you want to give Johnny Brzezinski 1.2 for like one more year or whatever, just to have him hang around and be like the extra forward, and because he's really liked in the locker room, and he's a great 13th forward in in a pinch. Sure, why not? Like whatever. There's bigger issues here to fight over. Carson Soucy would be a UFA, and if you listen to the show, you know damn well how I feel about Carson Soucy. Hopefully he finds a contract somewhere else. Brain Schneider would be an RFA, which is going to be there's two RFAs for the Rangers next season. One is Brain Schneider, and the other is Scott Morrow. With Brain Schneider, I don't know what kind of contract he's going to get. It would, if he doesn't play much better than he did last season, I don't think he's going to get a whole lot more. Maybe he gets like 2.6, 2.8, maybe 3 if there's terms in that situation that maybe makes sense for Drury to kind of finagle with him. Yeah, because right now he's pretty much been a sixth defenseman, and he's a first round pick. He's played what 4 years in the league now. and he's kind of just been that same guy for the entire time. There's been flashes here and there of him, doing something cool with the puck or like having a good defensive play, but overall it's kind of been, for a first round pick, it's kind of been like he's not bad, but is he good? Like, is he great? Is he first round pick material? Is he, he's definitely an NHL player, but is he somebody that has played up to his first round pick potential? And it's very difficult. Like, it's an impossible task for players to make, to live up to their draft status. It's very difficult. Unless you're somebody like McDavid or Crosby, Ovechkin, all of these like massive, massive names, it's almost impossible because there's a lot of pressure on you to fulfill that, and you have no say over when you get drafted. You don't. You have zero. So a team like the Rangers drafts Brain Schneider, was a first round talent, and maybe he wasn't. What if the Rangers reached a little bit and drafted in the first round, where potentially maybe would have been a better slot in the second round. Maybe they could have found somebody else. Like, we can split hairs about that all day long. But at the end of the day, Brain Schneider was a first round talent who is not really playing like one. He's okay. He's definitely an NHL caliber defenseman. But then what? He's kind of just been there. And this to me would be a pretty big make or break here for Braden Shredder. He's 23 also. He's 23 years old, and defensemen do take a while to develop, and he still would have room to grow. But if you're going to be handing out a RFA contract to a 24-year-old defenseman who has shown flashes of playing well here and there, but hasn't really taken that next step, what kind of contract are you looking to give him? So he's making 2.2 right now. Let's say the next contract is a 3 flat. Let's just say that, okay? And Scott Morrow is making less than $1 million right now. Scott Morrow, I have no like atoms worth of information as to what his next contract is going to look like. No idea, because it all depends on what he does this season. If he doesn't play in the NHL at all this season, then I would think they're just going to give him, maybe a 2-year extension or whatever, just to see what happens next. If he does play in the NHL and plays really well, and they want to keep, and they let's say it comes to like December, and they trade away Carson Soucy and bring in Scott Morrow, and he's the new de facto replacement for him, and he plays well, etc. Then we're looking at, I don't know, maybe a 4-year $4 million deal for, like, I don't know, 2 years, just to see, maybe a bridge deal for him and see, how he plays after that. You know, it's impossible to predict what Scott Morrow's contract is going to look like on July 1st of 2026, when it is currently August 19th of 2025, and we haven't seen him. Like, we've seen him for what, 3 playoff games in the NHL, and he didn't play terribly. So, it's really up to him at this point to kind of see what he does at the NHL level. So that's really difficult to guess. And and also, the only other UFA is Jonathan Quick, who I would have to imagine this is his final season in the NHL. And Dylan Garand is going to be the new backup for the Rangers after the season. That's the educated guess there. So the idea is this: Carson Soucy is making 3.25 right now. That's going to get taken off. It's Braden Schneider is going to making, instead of 2.2, that's a 3. Instead of, a 787 for Brodzinski, it's like a 1. Let's just say that. Scott Morrow, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, who knows? But let's just say that everything else equals 0, that it kind of just balances out. Like, the margins are minimal. So, right? So, the Rangers still have around, let's say, $29 million of cap space to play with on July 1st of 2026. So with Panarin, it is impossible to guess what he's looking to do. And I think this year is going to tell us a lot about what Panarin wants moving forward. If Panarin has another 100-point season and he's looking better than he did last season, and he's maybe shooting the puck a little bit more, and he's that first line with Miller and Zibanejad, if that gets going early and that builds confidence, etc., then maybe Panarin wants us to, and hope, fingers crossed, Rangers have a deep playoff run. Then there's the conversation to be had of, okay, well, if Panarin comes back, and if he wants to come back, what is the number that he is willing to come back for? Because he's at that point, he's going to be 34 years old. So I would think that it's going to be a short-term deal, maybe a 2-3 year deal. But for a guy like Panarin, if you are going to give him not a whole lot of years, you're going to give him more money. That's how negotiations work. If you gave Panarin a 7-year deal, I would have to imagine that maybe he'd accept like a six. I don't know. I'm just making things up. Maybe like a $6-7 million deal to kind of stretch out the contract. But if you're going to give him like a 3-year deal, I don't know if you can reasonably expect a pay cut for Panarin. I don't know how willing he would be to do that. It's impossible for me to guess that one way or other. Maybe he would be. Maybe he would go to jury and be like, okay, well, I'll take 3 years at $9 million, and that will lower the cap to like 20 and a half, and build out the rest of the team from there, right? So let's just pretend for a second that Panarin would make $9 million for next season. Rangers have $20 million in cap space. Okay. And now we go to the list of the top free agent list of 2026, right? So first off, we have Connor McDavid. Now, I know when you're gonna buy NHL 27, right, when that comes out, because this year's 26. When you buy NHL 27, right, the first before the season gets going, there's if you boot up be a GM, this is the list that you're going to see, that Connor McDavid is going to be a free agent and anyone can sign him, et cetera, et cetera. I am of the opinion, I don't have any inside sources to back this up, but this is just I'm putting my thinking cap on for a second. I don't think Connor McDavid leaves Edmonton unless they win a cup, whether that be this year or moving forward. I do not think Connor McDavid will willingly leave Edmonton and sign somewhere else and leave Edmonton with nothing without winning a cup. I think if he wins a cup, maybe there's a conversation to be had, but I don't think that, with the way McDavid's been, talking about it, and with the way that his kind of attitude is about Edmonton, I don't think he will leave that city unless a championship is won. I like, crazier things have been like Gretzky was traded, right? If Gretzky got traded, then anybody could get traded. But I just don't see McDavid saying, I don't want to play in Edmonton anymore. Let me go somewhere else. And okay, well, let's just, like, for as a thought example, let's think about it, for example, right? Like, let's just say this is the most hypothetical of all hypotheticals. Let's say Connor McDavid, July 1st, says, I want out of Edmonton and I only want to play for the New York Rangers. Let's just pretend that that's, what's going to happen. It's not, but we can explore here. It's August 19th. We can do a little bit of exploration right now, right? So let's just say, because he's making 12 and a half right now, $12.5 million. Okay. Well, I would have to think that with how much the cap is increasing, he is going to demand, I don't know, 18 million, 19 million in this next cap. He's going to be 30. I understand that. I'm well aware of that. It's Connor McDavid. You either give him every single penny that he wants, or he's not signing with you. He is the best player in the NHL right now. And if you don't want to sign him, every other team in the NHL will for that exact amount of money, for sure. Every team in the league will gut their entire roster just to get McDavid on the team, for sure, 100%. So the idea is that okay, well, what if McDavid wants to go to the Rangers? He's gonna want 18, 19 million dollars, which hilariously works with how much cap space the Rangers have. But okay, so if you sign McDavid and you don't really do much else along along the margins, you are still stuck with Fox Gavrikov, Borgen Moro, maybe as your second pair, and Schneider Vakanainen. Are the Rangers winning the cup with that roster? Maybe they for sure are going to get closer with Big David, 100%. Like I'm not, no one's arguing that. But the conversation becomes, would the Rangers then just be the Edmonton of the East in terms of, well, they're very top heavy, right? They have Fox, they have Shesterkin, they have Panarin and McDavid. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, who's on the blue line? Blue line's not looking so good. And they're going to have to win every game 8-7. Now, Shesterkin, very much going to be, obviously, this is not breaking news to anyone, McDavid's best goalie he's ever played with. If you put Shesterkin on the Oilers, I would have to wager that they win one of those cups that they lost in the final, right? Like that's kind of the, and Skinner played well in 2023, 24. Yeah, 2022, 2024 in the final. He didn't have the greatest playoff run, but in the final he played pretty well, right? Still, easily, far and away, Shesterkin would be the best goalie McDavid's ever played for, which makes the road to the cup that much easier. And, the comment here from Chris Bernard, which I totally agree with, is give McDavid the max and figure everything else out later. Like that's, one of the very few players in the world that you would say that to. Like he is 100% worth max slash we'll figure everything out after that later. McDavid sign that dotted line, and then everything else we'll figure it out. Just get here first. We're gonna give you whatever you want. Sign the contract, and then we'll play around with what we got going on. Then next on the list, of course, is Panarin. So will he sign here or will he not? The question now becomes, okay, well, he is 34. He's going to be 35 soon. Like he won't be, he hasn't just turned 34. He's going to be 35 soon. So the question now becomes is he's going to be a player that is going to be turning 36 later next year, right? At this time next year is going to be close to 36. What kind of contract are you going to give him? If you give him a 3-year deal at 8 million or 8.5, it's pretty palatable because the cap is going to go up even more. And with these contracts, right, these quote unquote bad contracts, and like this is maybe a little bit, more than he would have, than you would like to give somebody like that or whatever. But these kind of contracts become more digestible with the cap ceiling going up, even more. So, okay, well, that kind of leaves, if Panarin wants to do that, then we can have that conversation. If Panarin says no, I want $13 million for 4 years, I don't think the Rangers can do that. Are you going to pay Panarin $10 million until he's 39? Like when he's 39? That's tough. That's a really tough question to answer. I think a lot of it has to do with, and stay with me here, the potential replacement for Panarin. If you look at the free agent list for next season and you scroll down just a little bit, when you look at the left wingers, you have, Alex Ovechkin's a free agent. I'm not even entertaining that one. He's not leaving. He's not leaving Washington. Don't even look at that. It's not. He's gonna be a capital for life. Like that's he's on the list just because his contract literally expires. But after that, he's not going anywhere, right? The next name on that list, which I find to be very intriguing, and again, I don't have any intel or anything to suggest that he would come here, but this is an interesting name as a potential Panarin replacement if Panarin wants too much for too long and etc. Kirill Kaprizov, Kirill the Thrill. He is making $9 million this season for Minnesota, and he will be an unrestricted free agent at the age of 30 next season. He's 29 right now, so he'll be 30. If Panarin says no, and you can get Kaprizov on this team, well, there's your replacement, right? I mean, Kaprizov is an incredible talent. He's one of the best, players in the league as well. And I don't foresee a situation like if Panarin re-signs with the Rangers after the season, I would have to think that removes them from the Kaprizov sweepstakes. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe because the cap is going up so much, I don't know what Kaprizov is going to demand. I would have to think it's like 14 million, 14.5 million. I don't know. It's impossible to kind of figure out. But Kaprizov is going to want a pay raise. Rangers can fit that, but it's going to have to come down to, I would think, Panarin and Shesterkin doing a lot, and maybe Gavrikov as well, doing a lot of the heavy lifting of, hey, we want you here. Let's get you here. Right? Obviously, because they all speak Russian. That's kind of the one avenue I see to the Rangers really bolstering maybe their forward group is having Kirill Kaprizov. Any team would want Kaprizov. Like this is, I'm not like this is not rocket science by me suggesting that Kirill Kaprizov on the Rangers would look really good. Yeah, of course he would. Of course he would. Yeah, sure. But, let's say he signs for 14-15 million dollars. The same issue kind of still applies on defense where you get an incredible forward for sure 100%. You still need to fix your defense. And hilariously, it's not going to happen, but it'd be hilarious. Jacob Trouba is going to be a free agent after this season. I don't want to talk about it. That's not happening. But, you take a look at like these names aren't super spectacular. The massive free agent name at the top of this list is Cale Makar, and I don't think he's going to leave Colorado. He is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He's going to be 28 here soon. He's going to be 29 when this contract expires. Yeah, listen. I would love Cale Makar on the. Can you imagine? For a split second? Close your eyes for a second. Close your eyes with me here for a second. Makar Fox pairing. Oh my god. That would be incredible, right? That would be the stuff of legend. That would be something that you can only see in NHL All-Star games if they weren't East-West split, or like in NHL 25 or 26 or whatever it is. It's ethereally possible, the idea that Cale Makar could walk to free agency and then the Rangers are like, oh, hey, $18 million? Cale Makar to the Rangers with Adam Fox? Pairing? Thoughts? Questions? Concerns? Sure. But, again, I just don't see Makar leaving Colorado. Maybe he does. I don't know him personally, so I can't ask him that question. And obviously, even if I did know him, he wouldn't tell me. And even if he did tell me, disclosing that would fray that relationship pretty quickly, I would say. So, I don't know how Cale feels about Colorado right now. Obviously, I know he loves the city, he loves the team, but let's say Colorado keeps falling, if they keep struggling heavily to get out of the first round, what does that due to Makar's thought process? Like, if the Avs miss the playoffs this year, what does that do for Cale Makar's thought process? Does he go, what if I go and sign somewhere else? What if I want to go play with Fox? What if I want to go play with Zach Wierenski? What if I want to go play with, you know, Sanderson or whoever, right? That's a real question that Colorado, I'm sure, is blanking their pants over. I would have to think that Colorado is very afraid because Cale Makar does not have a contract extension, and that if the organization does not have a great year, Cale Makar might leave Colorado. I'm not saying he will. There's no intent. Like I said, I just want to make it 100% abundantly clear. I'm not saying that he will, or that there's fear that he will, but I'm as just a spitball of, if the Avs miss the playoffs, then what for Cale Makar? Maybe maybe he'll leave. Who knows? The next biggest names, you got John Carlson, you have Ryan McDonough. Carlson's going to be 37. McDonough's going to be 38. Cam Fowler is going to be 35. Ekholm is going to be 37. Yeah, he didn't have a great final for sure. This past season, but I love Matthias Ekholm 100%, and I would love him as a Ranger. 37. It very much depends on what kind of money you give him. 100% depends on, okay, well, he's 37. He's been having some injury issues. Are you going to pay? Like, he's making 6.25 right now. I would think when he's 37, he's going to not, want like $8-9 million. So let's just say it's like a $4 million deal to play like 5D or something like that, right? I would take that in a heartbeat. But it all comes down to, a lot of this conversation is, okay, well, we just have a bunch of this money, but what is the best way to allocate that money? Is it the Rangers have $29 billion cap space? Is it give Panarin 9, give McDavid 19, the case of the city, and Chris Drury's firstborn child, and fit in whomst ever on the blue line to just kind of try to see who can play better defense and run it? Or is it, okay, well, we're gonna give Ryan McDonough a 3-year deal. We're gonna give, I don't know, we're gonna give Jake Wallman a 3-year deal. Are we gonna give Timothy Liljegren a 4-year deal? These are the kinds of names that are right now are kind of they're the youngest players on this list when you think about it. Obviously, other than Cale Makar, there's household names on the blue line free agent list for next season. Guys like Shea Weber, whose contract is finally going to expire. These people don't count, but Michael Matheson, Matthias Ekholm, Cam Fowler, Ben Sherratt, who I would never want as a Ranger. Please don't do the funny, Chris Drury. Please, I beg of you. Connor Murphy, Nick Jensen, Radko Gudas. These names are all great and all, but they are old. They are very old. Even somebody like Radko Gudas should be 37 next year. I would take on a 1-year deal. I would take on maybe even a 2-year deal. But the biggest hole is in that second pair slot. If Scott Morrow can prove to the Rangers that he can do it, that solves a lot of problems. That solves a tremendous issue the Rangers can't really fix in the free agency market this upcoming season. After the season. Because again, Gavrikov and Fox are your top pair. Right now, the second pair is Borg and Soucy / Schneider, maybe? Or is it, whomstever it is? There's a question mark there in the second pair. And you take a look at this lineup and you go, okay, well, who would play those minutes well? Maybe you could convince me that 38-year-old Ryan McDonough will still have a little bit left in the tank, but at that point, you'd probably be best served as a third pair defenseman. because he won't have the foot speed. Maybe it's Connor Murphy, but I don't know about that. Like, I would love Jake Wallman. I don't know if he leaves Edmonton, either. But I would love Jake Wallman as a Ranger. I think he would be a great tough four defenseman for them. But again, like right now he's making 3.4. I would have to think like his next contract at age 31 and a half, probably a 5-year deal, maybe like $7-8 million. Okay. Well, like let's just say for example that Jake Wallman is 7.5 at 5 years, right? Like just walk with me here. Okay, so you sign him for 7.5. You sign Panarin for 9.5. That still leaves you with like 12-13 million dollars of cap space. Okay, so let's go out and you sign, a couple of these other names, for example. You got this list just isn't all that great. Like I'm gonna be real with you here. Yeah, I mean, you give Ryan McDonough like a 1-year flyer just to see, have him be the McDonough Schneider pair. Like that could work a lot better instead of Vakanainen, the dog. Please, like Vakanainen is not a top 6 NHL defenseman, and I can't believe the Rangers extended him, but that's not here nor there, right? So again, this is without thinking about Cale Makar or McDavid to the Rangers, because these are moves that you hope to happen. You would hope that the NHL would be a little bit more like the NBA, where in terms of, like stars are always on the move, stars are, always going to different places. Like Kevin Durant just got traded, to Houston this offseason. And, Damian Lillard went back to Portland after he got waived, and like all these things. Like, star movement in the NBA is always a big deal. NHL doesn't have that. Doesn't have that at all. There's, the culture in the NHL is a lot. I don't want to say more loyal like that, because it sounds like it's a slight towards the NBA. The NHL culturally is just different. Like, star players very rarely move to different teams. So, another name, of course, hilariously, on this list is Jack Eichel. Former future Rangers legend Jack Eichel would be hilarious to embark in a Rangers jersey now. He's almost 30. He's going to be 31 by the time his contract expires next season. The question becomes then of, okay, well, if you're going to sign Jack Eichel, what does that contract looks like? Because right now he's making $10 million. I would think that his next contract is going to be 13 and a half, 14 million. I don't know. It's difficult to assess that. But okay, so if he's making a little bit more than that, then that's half of your cap space gone. Okay. Not the end of the world, but now you have 4, top 6 slash top 9 centers to go around your team. You have JT Miller locked up, for the rest of the time. Zibanejad still locked up for the rest of the time. Vincent Trocheck still locked up, right? So then would it be Panarin maybe if he resigns, and then it's Eichel and Zibanejad? Is it Eichel and JT Miller? And that's the line. I think the Rangers, because they have $29 million of cap space, like this is going to be very interesting. I'm not even talking about the goaltending, because it's going to be Shesterkin and probably Dylan Garand. Like that is probably the most set in stone 1-2 pair on the entire roster. Like other than, Adam Fox still being here, other than Zibanejad probably still being here, Miller probably still being here. You got guys like that. Gavrikov still is going to be here, barring a catastrophe, which I don't foresee happening. There's very few names written in pen leading into the 26-27 season for the Rangers, whereas for most teams as well. But we're talking about the Rangers here, and it's there's a lot of teams right now that are looking to really bolster their lineup because the cap is going up by so much. This is also why you didn't see a whole lot of trades happening at the draft, is because there weren't as many teams that were begging for cap relief because the ceiling went up by so much. Every team has bad contracts. You can't escape them. I mean, you could by just not giving them out, but that's neither here nor there. Every team has some bad contract. The question now becomes, okay, well, how am I going to get rid of them so I can sign X player or this, or this guy or whatever, where you would have that pressure in every single year, except for this past year, and I would think next year as well. You don't have that because the cap has went up by such an inordinate amount, and it's going to go up by an inordinate amount again. Teams aren't feeling the pressure of, oh my God, I have to trade this guy. Oh, I have to think about every penny that I'm giving out because I don't have the space. Every team now has space, and it's going to be a dogfight, and it's really going to be a genuine issue for a lot of teams that are going to miss out on guys that they deem to be difference makers. I'm sure in an open market, Connor McDavid's going to get $20 million, 21 million. Like I don't even know what the max contract next season is going to be. Is it 20? Is it 21? Is it more than that? Is it maybe less than that? Not sure. But whatever it's going to be, guys like Makar, guys like McDavid are going to get that, right? And now it's a matter of, okay, well, now what? Let's say McDavid stays, let's say Makar stays. Now teams that have a lot of cap space, like the Rangers, like a bunch of other teams, are going to be probably overpaying to get guys to come to them. Maybe Panarin signs an equivalent deal with 11.6 million to come back for 2 more years, 3 more years, what have you. Will that happen because he's going to be close to 36 at that point? I don't think so. But the cap is going up so much that it would almost be silly for guys like Panarin to take pay cuts. Now, as a Rangers fan, as someone that wants the Rangers to do well, of course I want Panarin to take a pay cut. Yeah, take a pay cut. Wow, I can't. Oh my God, chat, don't clip that, please. uh, of course I want him to take a pay cut. Be great. And that would mean the Rangers now have more space to go out and acquire more players that they would that they fit to fill out the roster. But because, like I said, the cap is going up so much that guys like Panarin and Eichel and Kaprizov and Makar and even other guys like Line and Kyle Connor maybe that are going to be free agents, they are going to get paid, handsomely paid. And if you're going to go for a guy like that, which is fine, you have to figure out the rest of your roster with 9 mil, 10 mil, 11 mil in space, and that is without re-signing Panarin, right? So are the like if you just drop McDavid on this team right now, all the Rangers cap or cup champions. Obviously they get a lot closer. 100%. For sure. Like no doubt about it, they get a lot closer. Maybe with a couple of trades, you fix the blue line a little bit more, and maybe you have a real run at it. Like that, Connor McDavid is that type of difference maker. Cale Makar is that type of difference maker. For the Rangers, it's okay. Well, let's say those two guys are off the market. What will it take for the Rangers to build out a roster with the rest of the money that they have? It's going to be a lot to build a potential cup contender. Right now, they are not a cup contender. They're not. Let's be honest with ourselves, they are not. So, what is it going to look like next season when everyone has much bigger pockets, right? Like right now, everyone's pockets are filled. They are filled to the brim, like their wallets are thick, and they just have no room to fit even a dollar, right, in their pockets. Like there's just no room. Next season, you take those full wallets and drop them into the ocean. That's how much space a lot of these teams are going to have. It's up to the Rangers now to figure out what they are going to do with that space and what it's going to look like in an environment where every team is going to have space for improvement. There's going to be a lot of big names at the top of the free agent board potentially. The NHL is always boring, so these things don't happen, but maybe it does. And now maybe it's Chris Drury. If the Rangers don't make the playoffs again or they, bow out early, maybe it's somebody else. Who knows? Making those decisions. But this is why I wanted to talk about this. I want people to kind of be thinking about what moves the Rangers are going to make and other potential rivals are going to make come July 1st of 2026. You have teams like Columbus that have a bajillion dollars in cap space right now that are, potentially on the up and up, right? Like you have, these are teams that, you know, Bobrovsky at this point would be 39, close to 39, but he's gonna be a free agent. You have Philip Gustafson, the Wild starting goalie. He's gonna be a free agent, right? There's like what's stopping the Blue Jackets from throwing a blank check at Philip Gustafson and saying, okay, we have our starting goalie of the future, and we have Zach Werenski, and we have Voronkov and all these other guys that are young and up and coming talents here. What is stopping other stars from coming to Columbus and building a dynamo here in Ohio? We haven't seen this in the NHL to this point. And outside of, the before the salary cap ceiling and era and all that, but teams only spend as much as their owners want them to. And maybe Columbus doesn't want to spend to the cap next season. But I would think that even a small market like Columbus, their owner is okay with spending that kind of money. So who's to say, like, a team that McDavid, McDavid's not gonna probably not going to Columbus, but like the Blue Jackets could be like a scary team. Like they are, they could be dangerous. The Devils could sign some, probably going to sign some, somebody of importance. There's a lot of the competition is going to heat up. It's up to the Rangers to figure out, okay, well, we have a lot of space. Are we going to fill it up with a bunch of Barclay Goodrows, Patrick Nemeth, and Ryan Reeves? Or are we going to fill out the roster with players that are actually going to be a positive shift in the direction of this team, and can they be productive both in game 37 of the regular season and in game 7 of the Stanley Cup final? Not just players that have cup experience, air quotes. Some people are listening and not watching, quote, if very big air quotes, cup experience, air quotes, rings. That's great and all, but can they help you win another one? Or are they just going to sit there and yap about how they want it when they want it? That's a big difference. Are you trading for what have you done for me before? Or what can you do for me now? When, Nick and I got into this a few, like a couple years ago when they traded for Patrick Kane. You traded for the resume. You didn't trade for Patrick Kane can help this team win the cup now. And that was the biggest downfall of that trade. With all this cap space, the one worry I have, of course, for the Rangers, as the worry is every year, the Rangers are going to overpay for players that used to perform, aren't going to anymore, and now that money is going to be difficult to move, and now the Rangers are going to be stuck in purgatory again. That's the worry. And here's a comment on Twitter on Twitch from BW Roberts 15, who says, I feel the Rangers just spend money just to spend. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast as well, where the Rangers don't really know how to allocate their funds well, but they do spend to the cap, which that's great and all. But if you don't allocate it properly, then what's the point of spending the cap? They need to, and he goes on to say they need to identify what their identity is going to be and sign players that match that identity. That's what made Florida successful. They sign players that fit how they play. I 100% agree. 100% agree. I think that's a great point. That's something that Nick and I have talked about for a while now, where spending just to spend doesn't make any sense. You have to spend money to acquire players that fit what you want them to be. Signing trading for Jack Roslovic and shoving him into the top 6 when he's not a top 6 winger is incorrect. Like that's not how that works. If you want a top 6 winger, you got to go out and get one. You got to go and acquire one. If you want a third line center, you can't sign, somebody that only was the 13th forward to try to fill that. You need to spend appropriately and correctly and think about, okay, well, I need this role filled. Who is the best player that can go out and do that role for me? And what is it going to take for me to get them? and then you can move on from there. But until that happens, you're just going to have a lot of cap space next season and a lot more questions as to how they're going to fill it. This has been Liberty Blue Podcast. I'm Andrew Chinley by myself this week. Nick again has been is on vacation this week, so I'm doing it, me, myself, and I. Please like the show on YouTube. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all these beautiful other platforms you can listen to us to. We are on Believe. That is our new network of podcasts that we are now a part of. So please check us out on there. Really appreciate your support listening to the show, talking to me here in the chat, and leaving us comments and tweeting us as usual. Very much